Get something stuck in your head. You don't want it to be in your head. You're not trying to think about it, but you keep thinking about it, and you can't stop thinking about it, and you stop thinking about it for a few seconds, and then it just comes right back. You ever get something stuck in your head? And does it ever have to do with food? Like cheeseburger all day long. You just can't get pizza out of your mind. You've been thinking Mexican, until you got to have a taco. That's the only way to get that out of your mind. Yeah, things get stuck in our head, and they just keep replaying. You ever get a song stuck in your head? The problem is you don't get a whole song stuck in your head, do you? You get 5 words of a song, and you just think about them. They keep coming. 7 notes of a song. And it just keeps replaying over and over and over. And you think it's gone, and then it comes back, and you just subconsciously start singing it again, and it's still there. And you pray that you go to sleep that night and wake up the next day and it's gone, right? That's your only hope, is that during the night it somehow gets out of your mind. It's even worse when it's not a song, when it's a commercial jingle. Isn't that even worse? Like, it's not even a real song. It's this jingle that you heard on television, and it just keeps going back again and again and again. And all day long, people are looking at you funny, like, why do you keep singing My Baloney Has a First Name? Like, why do you keep saying that? That's what they do. They get in there and they just, I don't know how the brain works when it comes to jingles, but it just holds on to those little phrases. Give you a couple examples. I'm not going to sing it so that maybe it doesn't get stuck in our brain, but you finish the jingle like a good neighbor. There we go. Every kiss begins with, right, coming up on Christmas. We're going to hear that one a lot. It's going to be stuck in some of our head. Break me off a piece of that. I want my baby back. Yeah, now, there we go. Thank you over here. I heard that. That's it. That's all it takes. Like just that little snippet, and it's in there, and advertisers know it. Like that's why they do it. That's why they find these, so they just keep replaying over and over again. Now, the Bible has jingles, not specifically jingles. But the Bible has these little themes that keep coming back again and again and again. And you think you got away from it, and then it comes back in the next story, and then it comes back in the next book, and then it shows up in the New Testament like it did in the Old Testament. And obviously there's one big overarching theme to the Bible, right? God loves his creation so much that he's intent on redeeming his creation through his son Jesus, who lived, died, and rose again. Like, that's the big theme. But underneath that theme, there are these little songs that keep playing. There are these little jingles that keep playing again and again and again. This person says it, and then that person says it. If you know what to look for, you'll see it. You'll see it peeking through the scriptures again and again. Disney Plus, by the way, has a fantastic documentary on John Williams, who wrote almost all of the famous movie scores that you know. John Williams wrote those. If you have Disney Plus, watch the John Williams documentary. He talks about how he would often give certain characters melodic themes, like a 5-note motif, we would call it. 5-note motif, and every time Princess Leia appears on the screen, you hear that somewhere in the music. Yoda has his own theme. Raiders of the Lost Ark characters, they have their own melodic motif, their own melodic theme. When you read the Bible, if you're aware of it, you'll see some motifs showing up. You'll see some melodies, and some 5 notes here and some 7 notes there. One of, again, secondary, not the big overarching, but one of the themes, one of the jingles that keeps showing up, and I'm just wording it very simplistically so we all get it, but one of the themes is simply compassion for the hurting, over and over again. If you read the Bible objectively, if you don't bring too much of your stuff to the Bible and you just let it say what it says, you're going to see peeking through the scriptures from the beginning to the end that God's heart is for the hurting. God's heart is for the oppressed. God's heart is for those who struggle, which is good news when we struggle. It's good news when we struggle to know that God's compassionate heart goes out to us. If you read through the Old Testament, you'll find that the most consistent complaint of the prophets. Now, the prophets were God's spokesperson who would speak truth to power throughout the whole Old Testament. They would stand before leaders, sometimes alone, sometimes almost unwillingly. Like most of the prophets didn't want to be a prophet. They just had to be a prophet because God told them to be a prophet. They would stand before power and leadership and say, you're doing this all wrong. Like, this is not right. When leaders tried to convince the people, everything's fine, it's all fine, there are no problems, everything's going great, the prophet would stand, again, often alone and say, no, God has something against you. No, God is upset at something that you're doing, which is a difficult place to be. This is why they didn't want to be prophets. It is difficult to speak truth when power and culture is committed to lies. It's difficult to speak truth when everybody else is committed to living a false narrative. Like truth pierces through that, but it's not always received well, and the prophets would stand up. Their number one message to the leaders and to the nation was, your heart is turned away from God. Your heart is turned away from God. You're no longer worshiping the one true God. You're worshiping false gods sometimes. You're worshiping wealth. You're worshiping power. You're worshiping your own success. You've taken your eyes off of the one true God and you've put it somewhere else. The evidence of that was, number one evidence throughout the Old Testament, you've turned away from God. Here's how I know that to be true, the prophet would say. You don't care for the poor anymore. You don't care for the hurting. That's how I know your heart's not with God. Because God's heart is with the hurting. You've turned away from God. Here's how I know. You have no compassion for those who are struggling. You have set up systems that help the advantaged gain more and the disadvantaged lose more. You push people at the bottom further down. This is how I know your heart's not with God anymore. Because you don't care for the hurting. Now, almost every time this happened for the prophets, everybody was still going to church. Everybody was still singing songs. Everybody was still praying prayers. They were going through all of the church temple motions, and God had to say to them frequently in the Old Testament, none of that matters. Like, I don't want to hear your singing anymore. You can stop praying. Don't bring any more offerings. I don't want your money because your heart isn't right. And again, here's how I know your heart's not right. You just don't care for people who are hurting. You don't care. Prophet Isaiah, one example. Very beginning of Isaiah chapter 1. Isaiah is, as a prophet, he's lodging these complaints against Israel. Here's the problems that you have. Here are the problems God has identified in you, and I want to help you make it right. I want to help you get right. So in Isaiah 1:16, Isaiah says, wash and make yourselves clean. Take your evil deeds out of my sight. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. And then Isaiah explains what it will look like if you learn to do right. Here's what he says. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow. That's the jingle, right? That's the notes that appear all throughout the Old Testament. If you want to get right, don't bring more offering, don't sing more songs, don't pray more prayers, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, take up the cause of the widow, care for the poor. Isaiah 58, later on in that exact same book, Isaiah, again, is telling them, if your heart is right, you will be like the dawn in the morning. Like, it's going to be so beautiful. Light is going to shine forth. Isaiah 58, beginning in verse 9. If you do away with the oak of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. Like, you know how to turn the ship around? You want to know how to walk in the way of the Lord? Stop pointing your finger at people who have less than you. Stop finding reasons to dislike all of these other people, blame all of these other people, accuse all of these other people, and instead spend yourself in behalf of the hungry. Satisfy the needs of the oppressed. Step into the hurting moments. Zechariah chapter 7. And the word of the Lord came again to Zechariah. This is what the Lord Almighty said. Administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against each other. This is what God wants from you. This is how you walk in the way of the Lord. This is not how you get to heaven. This is not how you get saved. But if you are a follower of Jesus, if your heart is set on the Lord, this is the kind of life you will be living. Micah chapter 6. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Now, earlier in that same chapter, he had confronted them because their measurements were out of balance. Like they were skewing everything to the rich and the powerful and away from the poor and hurting. And he confronted them about this and said, now this is the way God actually wants you to live. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. It's one of the jingles of the Old Testament. It just keeps, those are just a couple examples. It just keeps popping up. Those notes, they keep popping up. Look out for the oppressed. Care for the fatherless. Be on the side of the widow. It just keeps playing again and again. God won't let it go. God won't let us forget it. He won't abide a people that lives their entire life without a heart for the people who are hurting, because his heart's for the people who are hurting. Do you ever get a little bit angry, maybe humorously so, when somebody sings a few bars of a song and you know that song's going to be in your head the rest of the day? Like, why did you do that? This is what God's doing. God's always humming this tune. God's always singing this phrase all throughout the Old Testament. Hey, don't forget about the oppressed. Don't forget about the hurting. Don't forget there are people who need a relationship with God. Don't forget to show up on the side of justice and against injustice. God just keeps singing this song over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. We get to the New Testament, Jesus is singing the same song. He's singing the same song. He stands with children, on the side of children in the first century. He stands on the side of women in the first century. He stands on the side of the disabled. He stands on the side of the disadvantaged, all of which are marginalized in first century Israel. And Jesus says, no, I'm on their side. I'm on their side. I'm not on the side of the powerful. I'm not on the side of the people who think they know everything about the Old Testament. I'm on the side of the blind man and the woman who's been bleeding. I'm on the side of the poor. Jesus keeps singing this exact same song. He says that he identifies with the thirsty who need water and the hungry who need food and the prisoner who needs a visit and the naked who need clothing. Because at one point he says, if you give water to a thirsty person, it's like you're doing it to me. I am that person. If you care for a stranger, I'm that person. You did it to me. Jesus is singing the exact same tune. Help. Respond. Do something. Without qualifiers, by the way. Old and New Testament, neither one really give qualifiers. The jingle isn't help the poor, unless they could go get a job, then you don't have to help them anymore. Help the hurting, unless it's their fault that they're hurting. And then just tell them, hey, that's your fault. It doesn't say that. Help the stranger, check their ID first. Get their ID. Do they have the new real ID? Do they have that little thing? Doesn't say that. Doesn't say anything. Now, some of those questions may be good somewhere down the line. Right? Somewhere down the line, we might have to say, hey, let's talk about a few ways to make this more sustainable in your life. Let's kind of help you in some other area. Maybe that's a conversation down the line. The initial response, however, is just care. Just love. Don't question. See, sometimes in the culture that we're in, if we're not careful, because we're kind of steeped in this, our initial reaction is to come up with all the reasons why they're in the situation they're in. Right? We're getting programmed to see people as lazy, unmotivated, well, they don't really want to work. Like the world we live in, just like in the Old Testament, we're getting programmed. Remember what the prophet said, don't point fingers, not malicious talk. But we're getting programmed to look at people and decide all of the reasons why they're in that situation. When the jingle, like the song throughout the Bible is, no, just get over on their side. No, just see if you can help. The Bible encourages a priority. Again, not saying secondary questions don't become important later on, but the Bible encourages a priority when it comes to the hurting, and it's simply this: love first. Love first. But you see the hurting? Love first. There may be other things to figure out later on. Love first. You meet the poor? Love first. You're aware of someone that doesn't have a family? Love first. Love first. You meet the stranger? Love first. And really, until we obey love first, the secondary things don't really matter. We'll revisit this story next week, but maybe you're familiar with the story of the Good Samaritan, Luke chapter 10. Jesus is having a conversation, and in the crowd of that day is someone, Luke 10 says, is an expert in the law, which is a great description, because once you read the story, you realize he's not an expert at all. Jesus often does this, right? He meets people who think they know everything. And by the end of the story, you realize, no, they're in kindergarten. Like, they're just starting. They got a long way to go. Jesus meets an expert in the law, and the expert in the law has a question. The question is simply, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? Like, how do I gain eternal life? Jesus plays along because this guy's an expert in the law and says, well, Mr. Expert, what does the law say? And the gentleman says that we are to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and strength. And Jesus just lets him keep going. And Jesus says, okay, we'll do that. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That was his whole answer. Jesus said, okay, we'll go do that. And the expert in the law says, well, who is my neighbor? Who's my neighbor? To the expert in the law, this was a vague word. Who is my neighbor? And on the one hand, this is perhaps a clarifying question. Jesus, I want to clarify for me what this word means, but I think at its heart, this was a limiting question. This was a narrowing question. Who is my neighbor? Like, Jesus, give me the list of people. I don't want to love somebody I don't have to. Like, I don't want to love the wrong person. I don't want to love too many people. Like, can you shorten the list so I don't waste time, I don't waste love on somebody else? Who is my neighbor? And if you know the story, Jesus says, well, here's the deal. Everybody's your neighbor. There's no way to shorten the list. The neighbor is whoever you meet and whoever you see and whoever you run into. And we'll, like I said, we'll come back to some of the details next week. Your neighbor's anybody. Your neighbor's everybody. You're trying to limit this, and Jesus said there's no limit. Jesus takes a limiting question, who's my neighbor? Jesus takes a limiting question and teaches an unlimited way to live. You want to do less, I'm telling you it's more. You want a shorter list, I'm telling you there's no end to this list. You're going to meet people every day. They're your neighbor. You're going to cross paths with people every day. They're your neighbor. Whoever you see is your neighbor. Whoever has a need, that's your neighbor. Nobody gets scratched off the list. Nobody gets X'd out. Anybody's your neighbor. Now, here's the problem for us. In a world that tells you everyone is your enemy, Jesus says everyone's your neighbor. In a 24-hour news cycle that constantly tells you who your enemy is, Jesus constantly tells you who your neighbor is. We're constantly fed who is different from us, who is on the wrong side, who is the evil person in this, who is unlike us. Like, we're constantly told everybody else is our enemy, and Jesus' message is really clear. And I'm sorry, everybody's your neighbor. Everybody's your neighbor. And even if they are your enemy, Jesus also said love them too, right? He said love your enemy. You're going to turn on the TV today. You're going to scroll through social media today, and you're going to be told who your enemy is, and Jesus is going to say, sorry, that's your neighbor. Love first, because that's your neighbor, not your enemy. I was at a one-day conference last week, and Pastor Albert Tate, who pastors a large church in California, was one of the speakers, and Pastor Tate made this comment. If you consume something that makes you feel better about loving people less, it is probably godless. If you consume something that makes you feel better about loving people less, whatever you consumed is probably godless. Whatever news you listened to that helped you feel justified in loving a group of people less, whatever social media you scrolled that helped you feel better about loving somebody less, whoever you listened to that made you feel more comfortable loving a group of people less, that's godless. That's godless. Because Jesus said, love your neighbor, and they're all your neighbor. That's all your neighbor. So love first. Love in tangible ways. Love in meaningful ways. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to reintroduce you. We're going to remind you of some of the ways that we try to do that as a church. And we're going to invite you, if you don't have a place where you're intentionally loving other people, we're going to invite you to join us in some of these. And you'll hear some today and some next week and some on September 7th. But we want to be a church that loves first. We want to be a church that is singing the jingle of God that He sang over and over and over again. Some of you know Nate Summer. Nate's parents, Ray and Terry, are in our church. The family's been in our church for a little over 5 years. If you were here back in the spring, I interviewed Nate right before he went to Japan, where he's been serving as a missionary. Many of you pray for Nate on a regular basis. Thank you for that. Many of you contribute financially so that Nate can go and be a missionary in Japan. Our church contributes financially to help the ministry that Nate has. But here's a short update from what God is doing in Nate's life. Watch this.
Hey Journey Church, my name is Nate Summer, and if we haven't met before, I've been part of the Journey family since about 2019. Since April, I've been living in Tokyo, Japan, following the Lord's call into cross-cultural missions. I'm here doing a 6-month internship with Paz Church, a church with the vision to see over 90% of Japan reached by the year 2050. To accomplish that mission, they're planning life-giving churches all over the nation, and I'm currently serving at one of their Tokyo church plants. During the week, that church actually opens as a coffee shop, which is the perfect fit for me because I've actually been a barista for over 7 years before coming to Japan. I've been able to serve people through the shop, build relationships, and even help with social media for the ministry. While in Japan, I've also been attending language school in Shinjuku every weekday. Learning Japanese has been a humbling process, filled with many mistakes and some embarrassing ones. For example, one time I complimented my friend's underwear instead of his pants like I intended. Lesson learned. But through it all, I've been encouraged by the small language wins, and I've also made such incredible friends at the language school. I've even had the chance to share the gospel with a couple of them. My home life here in Japan has also been one of my biggest ministries. I live in a student dormitory where many of the students here are not Christian. While the language barrier is tough, I've been making some really great friendships here. And recently, 2 of the students even came to church with me for the first time. They said they wanted to come back, which was super encouraging. My internship here ends in October, and I'm so excited to be back with Journey and all my family and friends very soon. But God's made it clear that this is just the beginning. I'm actually already preparing to return here again next year for long-term ministry in Japan. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you, Journey. Your prayers, your support, and generosity have made this all possible. I truly couldn't do it without you. I'm so grateful that we get to partner together to bring Jesus to the nations. And as I wrap up my last 2 months here, I'd love for you guys to be praying for me in these 3 areas: faithfulness in ministry and relationships, confidence and progress in language learning, and lastly, provision and wisdom as I continue to pursue the next steps to move here long term. Thank you guys again for all of your prayers and support, and I can't wait to see you guys soon.
So Nate heard the jingle, right? He heard the theme that there's people in a far place who need to meet Jesus, who need to be touched with compassion and the love of Christ. And he responded. And he went. And again, many of you are part of that because you pray for Nate. He gave us some prayer requests there. You pray for Nate all the time. You're part of what God is doing through Nate in Japan. Some of you give monthly. Some of you made a one-time gift so that he could get there and be on the mission field. If you give to Journey, part of what you give helps keep Nate right in the middle of where God has called him and where he's drawing people to himself and a ministry that he's growing there. Just love first. Just love first. Now, I get it. Most of us aren't going to Japan, not as missionaries. Most of us aren't leaving our families. We aren't leaving our home. That's not what God has called most of us to do, to physically go where Nate has gone. But maybe there are other ways that you can go. We've made 3 trips to Puerto Rico. We've told you about those many times. We serve with a local church there, and their heart is to love first. Their heart is to help us find places right in their community where we can love someone in the name of Jesus, build a bridge, build a relationship from that church to them so that that church can continue ongoing ministry to that family. I'm going to talk to a couple that has been to Puerto Rico with us in just a minute, but here's a video about Puerto Rico.
All right, hey Journey, we got our Puerto Rico team back. And these guys, they think they're big shot world travelers now. We're going to see just how much they know about Puerto Rico, all right? All right, Jason, trivia question.
Yes, sir.
How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
1.
No. Okay. How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
Well, since Jason got it wrong and he said 1 and that was my answer, I'm going to say 3.
No. How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
2.
Way off. Okay. How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
I'm going to go with 5.
Still incorrect. How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
6.
Incorrect. How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
I didn't hear everybody else's answer, but I'm going to go with 1.
One is not the right answer. I'm so sorry. The right answer, everyone, is 143. It's an archipelago and has lots of islands. What was your favorite part about the Puerto Rico mission trip?
Definitely meeting everyone from the church there and getting to spend time with them.
Awesome. Jason, what was your favorite part about the trip?
It's hard to pick any one thing, but for me, I guess I would say just watching the Lord work in my son's heart, get to experience that with him. So
Awesome.
amazing.
Awesome, cool. What was your favorite part about the trip?
I think watching the growth of the young men that went on this trip with us was amazing to see the Lord working in them and their growth.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What was your favorite part about the trip?
Especially watching all of our youth build relationships with the youth of the churches there. It was really great.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, favorite part about the trip? Tell us.
My favorite part about the trip, I've been on 3. There's so many things to mention, but I think this past trip, there was a lot of good things that happened, but the most eye-opening part about this last trip was probably watching Ken Sermons play Ultimate Frisbee. He is a Ultimate Frisbee ninja, everybody. I know y'all are laughing, but it is true. He is a secret weapon, probably had an interception and 3 touchdown passes come from a pine win. Yep.
I had no idea. Okay. Favorite part about the trip?
Connecting with the youth. We played beach ball, volleyball, or dodgeball, sorry. Pelted Ken quite a bit.
Oh, nice. Good. He deserves that. All right, sounds like it was a great trip. Too bad they don't know anything about Puerto Rico. Totally forgot one.
Yes, hey.
Trivia question.
Okay.
Find out how much you actually know about Puerto Rico.
Know a lot.
How many islands are in Puerto Rico?
1.
No, so wrong.
This is Patrick and Kristen Brigman. Welcome them to the platform today. Patrick, why did you think people would be laughing about my ultimate Frisbee skills? That is a question that I have.
I think it's because you took over 10 years to show it.
Okay. I do have hidden talents.
I firmly believe that you will be traded. Somebody's going to trade a first, 2/3, and a 5th round pick when we get to heaven for Ultimate Frisbee Heaven. Somebody's going to give up that much to
just
trade
to
up
get
for
me.
you.
I understand.
I firmly believe so.
I mentioned we've taken 3 trips, and Patrick has been on all 3, and his son Evan have been on all 3. Kristen's been on 2 out of the 3. My question to start our discussion is, why did you go in the first place? Like, what motivated you 4 years ago, I think it was, to take the step and go that first time?
I think it starts a little past that, farther back than that. The trip, I had a chance to go on a mission trip to South Africa, and I had signed up for it. I don't know why I'd signed up for it. Just felt that I needed to go and do something, and it got canceled. When this opportunity came and they told us that not only would we be able to go, but Evan would also be able to go, he was going into his freshman year. We both, Kristen is a teacher, so she has that servant heart. Anybody in education knows that teachers are always looking out for others first. I grew up in the Boy Scouts, so that was kind of ingrained in me. And we wanted Evan to have the opportunity to just see that what he sees here, talking about what you were talking about earlier, is not necessarily what is going on all over the place, that there's people in need. And we wanted him to be able to experience that because we knew that that would have an impact on how he treats people and what he does for people. And I think these trips have really put him to understand that we do have to love first, that we do have to serve. We see it with his teammates. We see it. He helps coach 8th graders in football in the Archer area. So we see things that he's learned on these trips where he does put others first.
Yeah, Kristen, just kind of an overview. What do we do when we go there? What have you experienced while in Puerto Rico on these trips?
So when we go, I would say there's physical labor involved in a lot of the trip. Typically, we partner through the local church. They've identified people in their community that are in need for various reasons, whether it's well, it's always been elderly people who are living on their own, or they're dealing with medical issues or whatnot, financial issues, and they're not necessarily able to take care of things in their own homes. Patrick and Evan are the resident climb on the roof with the pressure washer, reseal the roof. You will never find me on a roof. But it's a lot of just handyman type work activities, I would say. But you also get to spend that time really connecting with the people in the community, with those elderly people. And I have to say, I know Patrick mentioned I'm a teacher. Teenagers are my jam. And it's been so great every time we've gone to see the youth in particular. I think the first time we went, we had 7 teenagers go, and then there were 2 years ago, and then this past year, I don't even know how many, but there were quite a few. And to watch those teenagers just jump in and do absolutely anything that's asked of them, things that probably at home they would whine and complain if they were asked to do, but they don't even think twice about doing it. And to watch them have conversations with these people and sit down and spend 15, 20 minutes talking with an elderly woman who lives alone and just talking about anything with her and then praying with her at the end of it. And it's just really amazing for me to watch that in them, even if I take a backseat to what actually is going on there and just get to watch that.
Any significant moments, your 3 trips, your 2 trips, any significant moments stand out from your trips?
One, when you the same question was asked, one stands out. You had asked why we went the first time, and that's why we went the first time. And I struggled talking about what we did because I felt like I was bragging. Like I felt like, look what I did. The second trip, Kristen just mentioned it. Evan and I are the people that get on the roof and pressure wash the roof and scrape sealant off the roof and put sealant on put it back. Corbin Smith was with us the second trip, and Evan and Corbin and I spent the whole day on a roof. And at the end of the day, we all sit around and kind of talk about what we've learned and what we've experienced. And I distinctly remember this, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. We were sitting in a circle. Kristen was sitting here, I was sitting here, Evan was sitting there, and then Corbin would have been sitting where Ken is. And the question that day was, how did you see God move today? And I don't remember what anybody else said, but I remember what Corbin said. He said, my whole life I've been told that I am the hands and feet of God. I learned it at home. I was told it in church. I was told it in school. I was told it in youth ministry. He said, I didn't understand or fully recognize what that was until I was pressure washing a roof for a lady in Puerto Rico that I had just met. And I remember thinking, man, I just got schooled by a 17-year-old. But any time after that, I never had a problem talking about what we did because it wasn't what I did, it's what God put on our hearts to do. He saw a need. We've seen time and time again where these trips that we started to plan 4 years ago were answering prayers from somebody 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. So that is probably, there's been so many things, but when I'm asked, why do you go on those trips? Corbin Smith is the reason. He put it so beautifully. And then there's people on this trip that have said what I talked about last trip is why they went this time. And there's going to be people that go this next time in this room because of what other people said. And I think Corbin summed it up, and that little seed is going to grow this ministry a lot.
Yeah, and we could spend a whole lot of time talking about just how every trip God shows up in some really specific way that none of us saw coming. Like something happens that could have only been orchestrated by God. And there's just something about stepping out of your normal routine and into the lives of someone else. Many of them still struggling with hurricane recovery, and there'll be more hurricanes this year as well, especially elderly and those who are battling, like we served someone who's battling cancer this past trip. There's not a lot they can do to make those repairs, and so we get to step into that moment.
Can I say something on that real quick?
Yeah.
So that trip with Corbin, the lady's house that we were at, she didn't have any electricity. She didn't have any running water. She used the water runoff from her roof that went into a 55-gallon trash can. She used that water to flush her toilet. And people kept coming up to us that whole time and tell us how grateful they were there that we were helping her because she was such a big help in the community. Somebody asked her on the last day why she says so positive. And she said, I prayed to God when the hurricane hit that he would help, and he said he would send somebody. And then she looked at us and she said, he sent y'all. And I remember, wow, like that's 3, 4, 5 years of being faithful.
Kristen, what would you tell somebody who's on the fence about taking our next trip, especially ladies?
Yes, do it. Just do it. If there's any teeny tiny part of you that thinks you might want to do this, go do it. I'll especially say the ladies, I've had conversations with several ladies and they're just like, I don't know how I would be of any help. I'm not going to climb on a roof. I'm not going to chop down a tree with a machete, although that was kind of fun. But there are so many ways that you can serve, whether it's just helping somebody clean up their kitchen or sitting with them and talking with them so that they make a connection with somebody, packing blessing bags and then going out and reaching people in the community, sitting and playing dominoes with a military veteran. There are so many ways that you can be of service. I made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the rest of the workers, and I mean, that's what I did. But there's so many ways that you can be of help. We all have talents that we may not even realize that we have. And so I just encourage every single person to step out in some way, shape, or form, whether it's on a trip like this or something in your community, and just do something to help somebody else.
Would you thank Patrick and Kristen? We have an information meeting on September 21st. And so jot that down if you have any interest at all. We're trying to take 2 trips in 2026, one in June and one over fall break, which the weather will be much nicer over fall break if you're interested in that, if that one works out with your schedule. But we want to be a church that steps into places where there's brokenness and hurt. And this is just a couple of ways. You're going to hear a lot more over the next 2 weeks. Now, none of us are flying to Japan this week, I don't think. None of us are going to Japan to be missionaries this week. Probably nobody's going to Puerto Rico this week to help somebody with hurricane relief. But you're going somewhere this week. You're going to work this week. You're in a neighborhood this week. You're going to the grocery store this week. Hear that jingle. Hear that theme. Care for the poor. Be on the side of the oppressed. Stand with those who don't have family. Be on the side of justice. You can go to Japan. You can go to Puerto Rico. You can also go to Loganville. You can go to Monroe. You can go to the big city of between. And you can sing the song that God is singing. Love first. God, we thank you that you entrust us with this amazing capacity to show grace and mercy and compassion, to care for someone outside of ourselves. Maybe someone that, we can't even solve all of their problems. I know sometimes we get overwhelmed because we're thinking, what can my little word of encouragement do? Which is the wrong question. The question is this your neighbor? And if it is, love first. Maybe you can't take care of everything that's happening in their life. But you can love first. Help us to be Jesus people this week. Who, as the prophet said, we don't point fingers. We don't talk about other people and their failures. We just show compassion. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.